The white rose petals scattered across the manicured lawn seemed to tremble as the distant sound of helicopter blades cut through the string quartet's melody. 300 guests, in their finest attire, turned from the flower-adorned altar toward the sound, shielding their eyes against the afternoon sun. Landon Cruz, heir to one of the nation's largest tech conglomerates, stood frozen at the altar. The color drained from his face as he recognized the sleek black helicopter descending onto the estate's private helipad. "What is it?" "Who's that?" His bride, Vanessa, clutched his arm, her diamond bracelet digging into his skin. But Landon couldn't answer. The breath had left his body as the helicopter door opened and a woman in a tailored white suit stepped out, her chestnut hair dancing in the wind from the slowing rotors. Then two small figures emerged behind her. Twins, a boy and girl no older than 7, each holding one of her hands as they walked with practiced confidence toward the wedding ceremony. Landon's mother gasped audibly. Anyone could see it. The children had Landon's eyes. 7 years earlier, Landon and Harper Cruz had been the definition of a power couple. He was the brilliant heir to Cruz Technologies, she a biomedical engineer whose research had already changed lives. Their wedding had been the social event of the season, with vows exchanged in the same garden where Landon now stood beside another woman. Their marriage had seemed perfect, passionate, supportive, and built on mutual respect. They traveled the world together, donated millions to causes close to their hearts, and were preparing to start a family. But behind the scenes, storm clouds had begun to gather. Landon's childhood friend Caleb had joined Cruz Technologies as CFO, bringing his sister Vanessa into their social circle. What no one knew was how these two siblings would systematically destroy everything Landon and Harper had built. Before we continue the story, let us know where you're watching from. The Cruz estate glittered under the evening lights as waitstaff in crisp uniforms circulated through the annual charity gala. Landon watched his wife across the crowded ballroom, admiring how Harper commanded attention in her emerald gown as she discussed her latest research with the state's health commissioner. 7 years of marriage had only deepened his attraction to her brilliant mind and kind heart. "She's quite something," Caleb said, appearing beside Landon with 2 glasses of whiskey. "You're a lucky man." Landon accepted the drink with a smile. "Don't I know it? The clinical trials on her cancer treatment protocol are showing incredible results." The board's thrilled. Caleb nodded, his eyes following Harper as she laughed at something Vanessa said. "Must be nice having beauty and brains under one roof." As she laughed at something Vanessa said, "Must be nice having beauty and brains under one roof." "We're trying for a baby," Landon confided, the whiskey loosening his usual reserve. "Harper's been tracking everything, says the timing is perfect." "This month?" Caleb's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Fatherhood, huh? That'll change everything." Harper had smiled to herself that night, brushing her teeth, humming softly, unaware that the world she trusted was about to collapse. Later that night, Harper stepped out of their ensuite bathroom to find Landon sitting on the edge of their bed, her phone in his hand. His face was unrecognizable, contorted with rage and betrayal. "Landon, what are you doing with my phone? Who is Michael?" His voice was dangerously quiet. Harper's brow furrowed in confusion. "Michael? I don't know any. Don't lie to me." He thrust the phone at her, displaying text messages she'd never seen before. Intimate messages, explicit plans for meetings. 3 months. You've been seeing him in our bed, Harper, while I was traveling for work." "Landon, I've never seen these messages before. I don't know any Michael." Her hands trembled as she scrolled through conversations that appeared to come from her number, but contained words she'd never written. Each line felt like a bullet, fabricated desires, invented rendezvous, a parallel life she had never lived, now weaponized against her. Your perfume was on his clothes. He knew things about our house, things only someone who'd been here would know. "Perfume can cling to anyone," she whispered, but her voice cracked. "Landon, please think." Landon stood, running his hands through his dark hair. "Caleb found him. The private investigator confirmed everything." "Caleb?" Harper's mind raced. "These are fake. Someone planted these messages. I would never." But the conviction in her voice faltered as dread twisted in her gut. "Caleb." Of course it was Caleb. The bedroom door opened and Caleb entered without knocking. "Security found these in her car," he said, handing Landon a small bag containing a man's watch and a hotel key card. "I've never seen those before," Harper cried, reaching for Landon, who jerked away as if her touch would burn him. "Get out," Landon whispered, then louder. "Get out of my house. Landon, please, I'm your wife. I love you." Tears streamed down her face as Caleb signaled to the security guards waiting in the hallway. Her voice cracked like glass. Everything was unraveling, and no one was listening. "Not anymore. I want divorce papers drafted tonight," Landon said coldly. "Already taken care of," Caleb replied, not meeting Harper's desperate gaze. The next moments passed in a horrific blur as security escorted Harper from the bedroom. She begged Landon to listen, to think logically. Why would she cheat when they were trying for a baby? But rational thought had abandoned him, replaced by a primal rage fueled by what appeared to be irrefutable evidence. Within 30 minutes, Harper found herself standing on the driveway in her nightgown, watching as staff threw hastily packed suitcases into the trunk of her car. Landon watched from the balcony, his face a stone mask, while Caleb stood beside him, a hand on his shoulder, in apparent consolation. "Your access cards have been deactivated," the head of security informed her coldly. "Your accounts will be frozen by morning. Mr. Cruz suggests you don't try to contact him or anyone at the company." Rain began to fall as Harper sat in her car, gasping for breath between sobs. Her phone buzzed with a notification, access to her email revoked, then another, her building access terminated. Then a third, a preliminary notice of divorce proceedings. 5 miles from the estate, she pulled into a 24-hour pharmacy parking lot and sat trembling under the harsh fluorescent lights. This couldn't be happening. There had to be some explanation. Someone had set her up. But who and why? Her mind immediately went to Caleb's strange behavior over the past several months. The way he always appeared whenever she and Landon disagreed. The subtle suggestions that she might be working too much or traveling too often. Then a wave of nausea hit her. A familiar sensation from the past few mornings that she'd attributed to stress. With shaking hands, she entered the pharmacy and purchased a pregnancy test. 3 minutes later, staring at the positive result in the pharmacy's sterile bathroom, Harper Cruz's world completely collapsed. She was pregnant with Landon's child, homeless and facing a vicious divorce orchestrated by someone she now suspected had been plotting this for months. As dawn broke, she parked near Landon's office building, determined to make him listen. But security intercepted her before she even reached the door. "Mr. Cruz doesn't want to see you, Mrs. Cruz," the guard said, uncomfortable but firm. "Tell him I'm pregnant," she pleaded. "Please, just tell him that." The guard disappeared inside. 10 excruciating minutes later, he returned. "Mr. Cruz says that, given your infidelity, he has no reason to believe the child is his. His lawyer will contact you about a paternity test after the birth." Harper's knees buckled at the cruelty of it. Through the glass doors, she could see Caleb watching from the lobby, his expression unreadable. That afternoon, she discovered her credit cards had been canceled. By evening, her closest friends had stopped returning her calls, all part of the same social circle as Landon. By nightfall, she was sleeping in her car in a Walmart parking lot, 7 weeks pregnant and completely alone. She didn't know it yet, but the ultrasound she would have 2 weeks later would reveal an even greater shock: twins. The first glimmer of hope came in the form of Eleanor Hastings, an elderly woman who found Harper vomiting beside her car early one morning. "You're either pregnant or dying, dear," Eleanor observed with startling directness. Her voice was no nonsense, but her eyes held the quiet concern of someone who had seen too much loss to ignore suffering. "Either way, you need help." Eleanor, a widow who had lost her only daughter to cancer years before, offered Harper her daughter's old room until she could sort things out. The walls still held faded posters and childhood books, a silent witness to a life cut short, and now perhaps a sanctuary for new ones to begin. It was in Eleanor's modest home that Harper finally found space to think clearly about what had happened and to plan her response. She'd pawned her wedding ring for $11,200, a fraction of its value, but enough for prenatal care and a used laptop. As the cold metal left her fingers, she felt the last remnant of her old life severed, replaced by something fiercer, more focused. Then she began meticulously documenting everything that had occurred, creating timelines, saving what evidence she could salvage. The picture that emerged confirmed her suspicions. Caleb, with Vanessa's help, had orchestrated her downfall. But why? What could they possibly gain? The answer came from an unexpected source. While browsing job listings at a coffee shop, Harper overheard two tech researchers discussing irregularities in Cruise Technologies' recent software compliance reports. "The numbers don't add up," one whispered. "The testing protocols were clearly altered before submission." "Caleb Blake signed off on everything," the other replied. "Landon Cruise probably never even saw the original data." Harper's scientific mind clicked into high gear. She'd been working on those very compliance tests before her expulsion. If Caleb was falsifying data, it wasn't just fraud, it was dangerous. People could die. And if she had stayed, she might have discovered it. That night, cradling her growing belly, Harper made a decision. Landon had failed her completely, choosing blind rage over trust, but she would not allow Caleb's schemes to harm innocent people or rob her children of their future. Her hand rested on her stomach as a tiny kick reminded her. These children were real, alive, and deserved more than the ashes of betrayal. "Your daddy didn't want us," she whispered to her unborn twins. "But that's okay. We're going to build something so spectacular that one day he'll realize exactly what he threw away." Morning sickness was a cruel misnomer, Harper discovered, as she vomited for the third time that afternoon. At 4 months pregnant with twins, her body was changing rapidly, making it nearly impossible to conceal her condition during job interviews. "I'm sorry, Dr. Cruise," the lab director said, not meeting her eyes. "Your qualifications are impressive, but we've actually just filled the position." It was the same response she'd received at 5 other research facilities. Someone, almost certainly Caleb, had blacklisted her throughout the industry. Eleanor found her crying on the porch swing that evening. "Chin up, dear," the older woman said, lowering herself beside Harper. "The world doesn't end because one man was too foolish to see your worth." "It's not just Landon," Harper explained quietly. "No one will hire me. My research experience means nothing when Caleb Blake tells them I'm unstable or dishonest." Eleanor considered this. Then, with her usual blunt wisdom, said, "Perhaps you need to meet people who've never heard of Caleb Blake." The next day, Eleanor drove Harper to a small community clinic, serving primarily low-income patients. The waiting room was packed, the staff overwhelmed. "My friend, Dr. Camille Rivera, runs this place," Eleanor explained. "She doesn't care about tech politics, only about helping people." Dr. Rivera was a hurricane in human form, a brilliant researcher who had walked away from a prestigious position to serve those without access to proper care. After a 5-minute conversation about Harper's research background, she offered her a part-time position analyzing patient data. "I can't pay you what you're worth," Dr. Rivera warned. "And I see you're expecting twins." Harper nodded, surprised. "The way you're carrying classic twin T presentation," Dr. Rivera explained. "Look, this isn't glamorous work, but it's honest, and no one here will judge you for being pregnant and unmarried if that's what you're worried about." For the first time in months, Harper felt a flicker of hope. When can I start? The work was indeed unglamorous, organizing patient records, analyzing treatment outcomes, and helping streamline the clinic's protocols. But it kept Harper's mind sharp. It also provided just enough income to supplement what she'd gotten from pawning her wedding ring. At 7 months pregnant, she waddled into Dr. Rivera's office with findings she couldn't ignore. "There's a pattern in these oncology patients," Harper said, spreading charts across the desk. "Those taking Cruise Technologies' new medication are showing liver complications at 3 times the reported rate." Dr. Rivera studied the data. "This is concerning. You're certain?" "The sample size is small," Harper admitted, "but the pattern is unmistakable, and it matches what I overheard about falsified trial data." Dr. Rivera's expression darkened. "We should report this to the FDA." "With what proof?" Harper sighed. "They'll say our data set is too limited. We need more evidence." "What we need," Dr. Stoff Rivera said thoughtfully, "is to develop an alternative treatment, something safer." Harper blinked. "That would take years, millions in funding." "Not necessarily," Dr. Rivera smiled mysteriously. "I have a fully equipped lab at my home. It's where I conduct my own research after hours. Perhaps it's time you saw it." Dr. Rivera's home lab turned out to be a state-of-the-art facility built inside what had once been a large barn on her property. "My late husband left me quite comfortable," Dr. Rivera explained. "I use my inheritance to fund research, the kind big companies won't touch, treatments for rare conditions, affordable alternatives to overpriced medications." Harper ran her hand over the gleaming equipment. "This is incredible. It's also private," Dr. Rivera emphasized. "No corporate oversight, no shareholders demanding quarterly profits at the expense of safety. Just pure science." She fixed Harper with an intense gaze. "Your previous work on cancer treatment protocols was groundbreaking. What would you do if you had the freedom to continue that research? Your way?" The question awakened something in Harper that had been dormant since her expulsion. The passionate researcher who had once believed she could change the world. 2 weeks later, Leo and Luna Cruz entered the world in Dr. Rivera's clinic, healthy, perfect, and blissfully unaware of the chaos surrounding their birth. No birth announcement appeared in the papers. No proud father paced the waiting room. Just Eleanor dabbing tears of joy as she held the newborns, and Dr. Rivera who had delivered them herself. "They have his eyes," Eleanor observed carefully. "Yes," Harper agreed, studying her son's serious expression and her daughter's curious gaze. "But hopefully, my common sense." Recovery from the birth was complicated by emotional exhaustion, but Harper allowed herself only 2 weeks before returning to Dr. Rivera's lab, often with the twins sleeping nearby in a portable crib. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Harper refined her research, focusing on developing a cancer treatment with significantly fewer side effects than Cruz Technologies' flagship drug. When the twins were 8 months old, the breakthrough came. Harper had created a compound that showed remarkable efficacy against aggressive cancers while maintaining a benign side effect profile. Dr. Rivera was ecstatic. "This is extraordinary," she declared, reviewing the lab results. "You need to patent this immediately." "Patents require money," Harper reminded her. "And lawyers." "Which I have," Dr. Rivera countered without hesitation. "But more importantly, this discovery deserves to reach patients. It needs a company behind it." Harper laughed bitterly. "What company would work with Landon Cruz's discarded wife?" Dr. Rivera gave her a long, measured look. "A new one you create yourself." The idea seemed preposterous at first. Harper had no business experience, no industry contacts, and barely enough money to cover diapers for the twins. But Dr. Rivera was persistent. Eventually, she revealed that she had been quietly investing in biotech startups for years. "I'm prepared to provide seed funding," she told Harper. "My only conditions are that you maintain complete control and that the medications we develop remain affordable." "Why would you do this, for me?" Harper asked, her voice guarded, eyes narrowed in a mix of hope and deep skepticism. "Because in her world, kindness had always come with a price. Because 20 years ago, I was you," Dr. Rivera answered simply. "Brilliant, betrayed, underestimated." She paused, her gaze softening as she looked at the twins playing on a blanket nearby. "The man who did it to me went on to become a pharmaceutical giant, selling medications at 20 times their production cost. I've spent 2 decades looking for someone who could help me change that system." She smiled faintly. "Consider it my investment in the next generation." Then, more quietly as if speaking to her past self, "Someone needs to burn the old empire to the ground and build a better one from the ashes." Nova Therapeutics was born in Dr. Rivera's barn-turned-laboratory, with Harper using her maiden name, Harper Wynn, to avoid immediate association with Cruz Technologies. Their first patent application went through without a hitch. Caleb and Landon remained completely unaware that their former colleague was quietly building a rival company. What began as survival had become something larger, a mission, a weapon, a reckoning in the making. By the time the twins turned 2, Nova had secured FDA approval for their first medication and had begun small-scale production. Dr. Rivera's industry contacts proved invaluable, opening doors that would have remained firmly closed to Harper alone. Their first major contract came from the Mercy Care Hospital Network, which had been struggling with the high costs and concerning side effects of Cruz Technologies' cancer treatments. Nova offered an effective alternative at half the price, with significantly better patient outcomes. The contrast was undeniable. While Cruz's treatments drained wallets and eroded trust, Nova's solution restored both health and hope. The announcement made a small ripple in industry publications. Newcomer Nova Therapeutics, led by scientist Harper Wynn, secures multi-million-dollar contract with Mercy Care Hospital Network, challenging established players in the oncology medication market. At Kruse Technologies, the news received little attention. A new competitor was hardly unusual in their industry, and the company name raised no red flags. Only when their largest hospital client announced they were switching suppliers did alarms begin to sound. Caleb Blake stormed into Landon's office, tossing a report onto his desk. "We just lost Metropolitan Medical to some startup called Nova. That's $30 million in annual revenue. Gone." Landon, now more involved in the social aspects of the business than the scientific work that had once fueled him, barely looked up. "So offer them a better deal." "I did," Caleb snapped. "They refused. Said Nova's medication has superior outcomes and fewer side effects." Their exact words were, "Kruse's product doesn't compare." That finally captured Landon's attention. "That's impossible. Our R&D team has been working on that formulation for years." "Well, apparently this Harper Wynn person solved in 2 years what our team couldn't manage in 5, Caleb said. His tone was carefully calibrated to suggest departmental incompetence, rather than his own sabotage of Kruse's research division after Harper's departure. "Harper Wynn," Landon repeated, frowning. The name stirred something in his memory. "No one knows much about her," Caleb continued smoothly. "She emerged from nowhere about 3 years ago, very private, never gives interviews, but her science is apparently exceptional." "I want to meet her," Landon said. "Set up a dinner. Perhaps we should consider acquiring Nova instead of competing with it." Caleb's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "I'll try, but my sources say she refuses most meeting requests, especially from larger companies." "Everyone has their price," Landon replied dismissively, returning to the social calendar on his desk, where Vanessa had marked several charity galas they were scheduled to attend together. Meanwhile, across the city, Harper sat in Nova Therapeutics' modest but growing headquarters, reviewing the latest financial projections while the twins colored quietly in the small play area of her office. "Kruse Technologies lost another contract today," her assistant mentioned, placing fresh reports on her desk. "Their stock dropped 8%. Harper allowed herself a small smile. "How unfortunate for them." "There's also this," the assistant added, sliding over a business magazine. On the cover was Landon with Vanessa on his arm at a high-profile charity event. The headline read, "Kruse heir to wed Vanessa Blake in spring ceremony." Harper's expression remained neutral as she studied the image of the man who had thrown her out in the middle of the night. The man whose children were now quietly drawing pictures just feet away. Children he had never even bothered to confirm were his, despite his initial demand for a paternity test. "Mom, look." Luna held up a drawing of what appeared to be their small family: Harper, Leo, Luna, Eleanor, and Dr. Rivera, all holding hands. "It's us." "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Harper replied, her voice steady but her chest tightened. The simplicity of the drawing, love, unity, peace, was everything she had fought to build, and everything they once tried to take from her. Later that night, after tucking the twins into bed, Harper sat on her balcony overlooking the city. In the distance, she could see the Kruse Technologies tower illuminated against the night sky. 3 years of strategic work had built Nova Therapeutics into a formidable competitor, one that was beginning to seriously impact Kruse's bottom line. But that had never been her primary goal. Her phone chimed with a message from her investigator, a former patient whose life had been saved by Nova's medication and who now used his skills as a financial analyst to track Kruse Technologies' activities. Found something significant in their quarterly filings. Hidden inconsistencies suggest at least $50 million unaccounted for. Need to dig deeper. Also, wedding date confirmed, May 15th. May 15th. The exact date, 6 years earlier, when security had escorted her out of her own home. Harper closed her eyes. She could still feel the sting of the night air on her skin, the cold metal of the gate behind her, the silence of a house that no longer wanted her. The timing couldn't be a coincidence. Caleb and Vanessa had a flair for psychological cruelty. Choosing that specific date was clearly meant as a final erasure of her existence in Landon's life. They didn't just want to win, They wanted to rewrite history without her in it. But they had miscalculated, badly. Because while they had been planning a wedding, Harper had been building an empire. And more importantly, she had been gathering evidence of financial fraud, of deliberately concealed drug side effects, and of the elaborate scheme to frame her for infidelity. The twins deserved to know their father, Dr. Rivera had told her repeatedly. And Landon deserves to know what Caleb did. Harper had resisted for years, protecting the peaceful world she'd created for her children. But seeing the wedding announcement, planned for the anniversary of her greatest humiliation, crystallized something inside her. It wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about legacy. Her children would not grow up believing their mother disappeared. She would show them what reclaiming power looked like. It was time for the truth to emerge. All of it. The Cruz estate had never looked more magnificent. Thousands of white roses adorned the garden, where 300 guests had gathered to witness the union of Landon Cruz and Vanessa Blake. String musicians played softly as guests were seated, their murmured conversations creating a gentle hum of anticipation. Landon stood at the altar. Handsome in his tailored tuxedo, though close observers might note the slight hollowness in his eyes. In the front row, his parents exchanged concerned glances. They had never fully warmed to Vanessa, though they had kept their reservations private. Caleb Blake, serving as best man, surveyed the scene with poorly concealed satisfaction. Everything had gone according to plan. Within months of Harper's removal, Caleb had introduced his sister to Landon. Vanessa's calculated affection had been the perfect distraction from Landon's occasional questions about the evidence against Harper. Meanwhile, Caleb had systematically redirected company funds, established offshore accounts, and positioned himself to eventually take control of Cruz Technologies entirely. The wedding officiant took his position. The music shifted to the bridal march. Vanessa appeared at the end of the aisle in a designer gown that had cost more than most people's homes. She glowed with smug satisfaction. Every step down the aisle, a silent declaration of victory. And then, the distant sound of helicopter blades. At first, guests assumed it was part of the celebration, perhaps a dramatic entrance or surprise planned by the groom. But Landon's expression of confusion quickly shifted to alarm as the black helicopter descended toward the estate's helipad. "What's happening?" Vanessa demanded, reaching the altar as the guests began to turn toward the noise. Landon didn't answer. Something about the helicopter seemed oddly familiar. The ceremony paused as the helicopter landed. Security personnel moved uncertainly toward the helipad, unsure whether to intervene. No one had authorized the aircraft. Then the door opened, and she stepped out. Even from a distance, Landon recognized her immediately. The world seemed to narrow to a single point as Harper, his ex-wife, the woman he had cast aside 6 years earlier, walked calmly toward the ceremony in an elegant navy suit that emphasized how little she had changed. The wind tugged at her coat as if announcing her arrival. She didn't flinch, her heels clicked with purpose. Her silence was louder than any accusation. Her hair was different, her posture more confident, but her face stirred something deep within him, something he had tried desperately to forget. Then 2 small figures emerged from the helicopter behind her, a boy and girl holding her hands, looking around with curious expressions that mirrored Landon's own when confronted with something new. Not just children. His children. The truth, walking toward him on 2 sets of steady little feet. "Oh my God." Landon's mother whispered, rising from her seat. "Richard, look at them." Landon's father stood as well, his face pale with shock. "They have his eyes." Landon's eyes. The murmurs spread through the crowd as Harper and the children walked deliberately toward the ceremony. Security looked to Landon for direction, but he remained frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. "What is this?" Vanessa hissed, grabbing Landon's arm. "Who is that woman? Why is she here with those children?" Caleb stepped forward, his face contorted with rage and fear. "I'll handle this," he muttered, signaling to security. But Harper's calm voice cut through the chaos. "I wouldn't, Caleb. Not unless you want your financial activities made public right now, instead of in tomorrow's papers." Her words landed like a bomb. No screaming. No threats. Just quiet certainty, and a threat far more terrifying than scandal: exposure. Caleb faltered as Harper and the children reached the edge of the Seating area. The twins, impeccably dressed and remarkably composed for their age, stayed close to their mother, studying the scene with intelligent eyes. Landon, Harper said, her voice carrying across the now silent gathering. Meet your children, Leo and Luna. The ones you never knew existed when you threw me out 6 years ago. The collective gasp from the guests was audible. Landon's mother pressed a hand to her mouth, tears filling her eyes as she looked at her grandchildren for the first time. That's impossible, Vanessa snapped. She's lying. Landon, tell everyone she's lying. But Landon couldn't speak. He was staring at the children, the boy whose serious expression and thoughtful eyes were eerily familiar, the girl whose determined stance mirrored his own in childhood photographs. DNA tests confirming their paternity have already been filed with the family court. Harper continued calmly, along with evidence of how Caleb and Vanessa conspired to remove me from your life by fabricating evidence of infidelity. Caleb lunged forward. Security, remove this woman immediately. I wouldn't, came another voice. Dr. Camille Rivera emerged from behind Harper, her voice clear and unwavering. Not unless Cruise Technologies wants the FDA to receive our complete file on the falsified side effect profiles of Renal tonight instead of next week. The crowd erupted into confused murmurs and panicked whispers. Landon's parents pushed past the security guards to approach the children. His mother knelt, despite her expensive dress, to look the twins in the eyes. Hello, she said softly. I would be your grandmother. Luna, ever the bolder of the two, studied the older woman carefully before replying, You look like the pictures Mom keeps in our memory box. That simple statement, revealing that Harper had ensured the children knew their paternal family despite everything, seemed to break something in Landon's mother. She began to cry openly, reaching out a tentative hand that Luna accepted with surprising grace. Landon finally found his voice. Harper, how? When? I was 7 weeks pregnant when you threw me out, she replied, keeping her tone measured despite the emotions churning beneath the surface. I tried to tell you, your security guards delivered the message. You said you wanted a paternity test after the birth, but no one ever contacted me. Landon turned to Caleb, confusion and dawning horror written across his face. What are you talking about? I never received any message about a pregnancy. Caleb's expression hardened. She's lying. This is obviously some elaborate scheme, To what, Caleb? Harper interrupted. To disrupt the wedding you specifically scheduled on the anniversary of my expulsion? To reveal that you and Vanessa have embezzled over $80 million from Cruise Technologies? Or perhaps to inform Landon that I'm the Harper Wynn he's been trying to meet, the founder of Nova Therapeutics, the company that's been steadily taking his market share for the past 3 years? Gasps rippled across the crowd like a wave hitting glass. The revelations landed like physical blows. Landon staggered back, looking from Caleb to Vanessa, then back to Harper and the children. His children, standing calmly amid the chaos they had just initiated. This is absurd, Vanessa declared, though her voice trembled slightly. Landon, she's clearly disturbed. We need to have her removed. Actually, came a new voice from the back of the gathering. I think we'll be removing you, Miss Blake. 2 individuals in dark suits approached, displaying federal badges. FBI, we have questions about certain financial transactions between Cruise Technologies and offshore accounts in your name. The air went still. Cameras clicked. A wedding videographer instinctively zoomed in, capturing what would soon become national news. As the federal agents escorted a protesting Caleb and Vanessa away from the ceremony, the wedding guests began to disperse, murmuring in confused, scandalized groups. Some lingered at a distance, unwilling to miss the dramatic conclusion to what had appeared to be a simple society wedding. Vanessa's veil caught on the edge of a rose arch as she was led away, ripping loudly, a perfect metaphor for the image she had so carefully constructed. Landon approached Harper and the children slowly, as if in a trance. He knelt before the twins, studying their faces with a mixture of wonder and devastation. Hello, he said simply, his voice thick with emotion. Leo, always the more cautious twin, partly hid behind his mother's leg. But Luna met her father's gaze directly. You look like your pictures too, she informed him matter-of-factly. But Mom's are from when you were happier. The words landed gently, but with the weight of 1,000 unsent apologies. Landon's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry I didn't know about you," he said. "I would've." His voice trailed off as the enormity of what he had missed engulfed him. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private," Harper suggested, glancing at the remaining onlookers. "Your parents are welcome to join us." Landon nodded numbly, then turned to find his mother and father already standing nearby, unable to take their eyes off their grandchildren. "The helicopter is waiting," Harper added, "unless you'd prefer to stay and explain to your guests why there won't be a wedding today." The finality in her tone was not cruel, but it was unshakable. She had arrived not to beg, not to plead, but to end a lie. As they walked toward the helipad, Landon found himself beside Harper, the twins slightly ahead with his fascinated parents. "Why now?" he asked quietly. "After 6 years?" "Why choose this moment?" Landon asked quietly. Harper's expression remained carefully neutral. "Because the twins deserve to know their father. Because your parents deserve to know their grandchildren. And because Caleb and Vanessa were about to complete their takeover of your company, leaving you penniless and potentially implicated in their crimes." She paused. "The timing of the wedding date, the anniversary of when you threw me out, merely provided a certain poetic symmetry." In the helicopter, as they flew toward Harper's home, Landon watched his children point excitedly at landmarks below. They were bright, articulate, and clearly well-raised. The life Harper had built without him suddenly began to materialize in his mind. The birthdays he had missed, the first steps, the first words. The nightly bedtime stories and morning breakfasts, 6 years of memories. Memories he would never recover. "Where are we going?" Landon asked quietly. "To my home," Harper replied. "There are documents you need to see, evidence of what Caleb and Vanessa have been doing to your company." She hesitated. "And the children want to show you." The helicopter touched down on the rooftop landing pad of a sleek modern building bearing the Nova Therapeutics logo. As they descended into the penthouse apartment, Landon realized, with growing shock, the extent of Harper's success. This wasn't just a company, it was an empire, built from nothing in 6 short years. Inside the spacious, warmly decorated penthouse, the twins immediately ran to a shelf displaying their artwork and school achievements. "We want to show you our room," Luna announced, grabbing Landon's hand with the easy confidence of a child who had never known rejection. Leo followed more hesitantly, watching his father's reactions carefully. As Landon was led through the home Harper had created, each detail revealed another facet of the life that had continued without him. Family photos of holidays and birthdays, artwork and school projects, subtle but unmistakable evidence of the twins' distinct personalities. In their shared bedroom, the space had been divided to reflect their different interests. Luna's half filled with astronomy decorations and science projects, Leo's half with books and intricate building sets. Landon noticed a small box on a shelf labeled Dad. "Can I show him, Mom?" Luna asked as Harper appeared in the doorway. At Harper's nod, Luna retrieved the box and opened it, revealing newspaper clippings, photographs, even the announcement of Landon and Harper's wedding from years before. "Mom made this so we would know you," Luna explained, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "She said you were very smart, and that's why we're smart. Part you." Landon looked up at Harper in disbelief, because despite everything he had done, or failed to do, she had ensured his children knew him, at least in some capacity. "I'll give you some time with them," Harper said quietly. "When you're ready, we need to discuss Caleb's activities. Your parents are in the living room." In the stylishly appointed living room, Landon's parents sat awkwardly on a sleek sofa, still stunned by the day's revelations. His father, Richard Cruz, a formidable businessman in his own right, looked utterly lost as he accepted a cup of tea from Harper. "How could we not have known?" he asked, his voice heavy with regret. "Our own grandchildren." "Caleb was very thorough," Harper replied without bitterness. "He intercepted communications, falsified documents, and ensured Landon received only the information that served his purposes." "But why?" Landon's mother asked. "What could he possibly gain?" Harper opened a laptop on the coffee table. "Control of Cruz Technologies. He and Vanessa have been systematically embezzling funds, while simultaneously setting Landon up to take the fall for covering up dangerous side effects of your medications." She turned the screen to show them complex financial records. Once they were married, Vanessa would have had access to Landon's personal accounts and holdings. They planned to complete the transfer of assets within months of the wedding. Richard Cruz studied the documents with growing horror. These are board-level financial reports. How did you get these? I have sources within Cruz Technologies, Harper acknowledged. People who remained loyal to the company's original mission rather than to Caleb's vision. Landon entered the room, visibly emotional from his time with the children. They're incredible, he said simply, looking at Harper with new eyes. How did you do it? Raise them so well, while building a company from nothing. I had help, Harper replied. Dr. Rivera for one, and an elderly woman named Eleanor, who took me in when I was homeless and pregnant. Homeless? Landon's mother repeated, aghast. Yes, Harper confirmed, her tone clinical rather than accusatory. When Landon ordered me removed from our home, my accounts were frozen, my credit cards canceled, my reputation destroyed. I slept in my car for 2 weeks, before Eleanor found me vomiting in a parking lot from morning sickness. The stark reality of what Harper had endured hit Landon like a physical blow. I never knew, he whispered. Caleb told me you'd moved in with your lover. There was no lover, Landon, Harper said quietly. There was only me, Harper said softly, pregnant with your children, trying to survive, while Caleb systematically destroyed everything we had built together. Landon sank into a chair, his head in his hands. The evidence had seemed so conclusive. The texts, the watch, even the witness accounts. All fabricated, Harper confirmed. Caleb hired someone to create fake text messages. The watch and hotel key were planted. The witnesses were paid. She opened another file on her laptop. This is the payment record, from Caleb's private account to the man who posed as my so-called lover. She clicked again, pulling up another document. And this, she continued, is the restraining order, supposedly filed by you, that prevented me from approaching you about my pregnancy. Landon stared at the document in horror. I never filed this. I would never. Caleb forged your signature, Harper explained. Just like he did on numerous company documents, authorizing the release of medications despite concerning test results. As the full extent of Caleb and Vanessa's betrayal became clear, Landon appeared to physically age before their eyes. His parents looked equally devastated, particularly his mother, who kept glancing toward the hallway, where laughter occasionally echoed from the twins' room. Why didn't you expose them sooner? Richard finally asked. With evidence this comprehensive, you could have cleared your name years ago. Harper considered her answer carefully. At first, survival was my only concern. Then, protecting the twins became paramount. By the time Nova was established enough for me to consider confrontation, I had to weigh the impact on innocent Cruz Technologies employees and patients. She met Landon's gaze directly. Despite everything, I never wanted to destroy the company, or harm those who depended on it. Landon looked at her with new understanding. So instead, you built a competing company, with better products and ethical practices, gradually transferring patients to safer medications while gathering evidence against Caleb. Yes, Harper acknowledged. Nova wasn't built solely for revenge, Landon. It was built because I saw how Caleb was corrupting your company's mission, the mission we once shared, of helping people. A soft knock at the door interrupted their conversation. Dr. Rivera entered, carrying a tablet. The FBI has taken Caleb and Vanessa into custody, she reported, and the preliminary filing with the SEC has been completed. Cruz Technology stock trading will likely be suspended pending investigation. Landon paled. The company will collapse. Not necessarily, Harper replied. She retrieved a folder from her desk and handed it to Landon. A merger between Nova and Cruz Technologies. It would preserve jobs, maintain patient access to medications, and allow for an orderly transition while the legal issues are addressed. Landon opened the folder with trembling hands, scanning the detailed proposal with growing amazement. You've prepared for every contingency, he murmured. I've had 6 years to consider the possibilities, Harper replied simply. As Landon and his parents reviewed the proposal, Harper stepped into the hallway with Dr. Rivera. Are you certain about this? Dr. Rivera asked quietly. After everything he did? Harper watched through the doorway as Landon studied the document that could save his family's legacy. This isn't about Landon, she replied. It's about the twins having a relationship with their father and grandparents. It's about preserving jobs and continuing to help patients. Dr. Rivera smiled knowingly. And it has nothing to do with finally showing him exactly what he lost when he chose to believe Caleb over you. For the first time that day, Harper's composed expression cracked slightly, revealing a glimpse of the pain she still carried. Perhaps there's some satisfaction in that, she admitted, but revenge was never my primary motivation. No, Dr. Rivera agreed, squeezing her friend's hand. That's why you succeeded where Caleb failed. He was driven by greed and resentment. You were driven by something far more powerful, the determination to create something good from something terrible. The twins appeared in the hallway, their earlier excitement giving way to uncertainty as the weight of the day began to settle in. "Mom?" Leo asked quietly. "Is he really staying for dinner?" Harper knelt to her son's level. "Your father and your grandparents would like to have dinner with us, yes? Is that okay with you?" Leo considered this seriously. "Does this mean we have to call him Dad now?" "No, sweetheart," Harper assured him. "You can call him whatever makes you comfortable. This is all very new, and everyone understands that." Luna, ever practical, had a different concern. "Will they come to our birthday party next month? We're having a space theme, and Grandma Eleanor is making the cake." The simple question, reflecting a child's honest, uncomplicated priorities, shifted the heavy atmosphere. Harper smiled, genuinely, for the first time since the helicopter landed. "That's something we can discuss over dinner," she replied. "For now, why don't you both wash up while I check on our guests?" As the children scampered off, Harper returned to the living room, where Landon and his parents were engaged in intense discussion. They fell silent as Harper entered. "The twins would like to know if you're staying for dinner," she announced. "And Luna has already advanced to questions about birthday party attendance next month." Landon looked up, his eyes red-rimmed but filled with determination. "I'd like that. The dinner. And, if you'll allow it, the birthday party too." "We understand if it's too soon," his mother added gently. "We've missed so much already, but we don't want to overwhelm them." Harper studied them, the family that had once been hers, now strangers, connected by blood to her precious children. Dinner is a good place to start, she decided. As for the future, that depends on many factors. The twins' comfort is my priority. "As it should be," Richard agreed firmly. "We failed them, and you, terribly. Whatever boundaries you set, we'll respect." Eleanor arrived shortly after, bringing the dessert she had promised the twins. Her introduction to the Cruz family was awkward at first, but warmed quickly when Landon thanked her, his voice breaking, for taking in Harper when no one else would. "Someone had to show some common sense," Eleanor replied bluntly. "Lucky for all of you, I'm too old to care about pharmaceutical politics, and too stubborn to be intimidated by wealthy fools." The dinner that followed was surreal, the blending of two worlds that had existed in parallel for 6 years. The twins, adaptable as children often are, seemed to accept the sudden appearance of grandparents with remarkable ease. Landon, however, watched his children with an expression of wonder mixed with profound loss, acutely aware of every reference to events he had missed. As Eleanor and the elder Cruzes helped the twins prepare for bed, an unlikely alliance forming in their shared desire to connect, Landon and Harper found themselves alone in her study. "I don't know how to thank you," Landon said finally. "Not just for the merger proposal, but for—" he gestured helplessly, "for making sure they knew who I was, even when you had every reason to erase me from their lives." "They deserve to know their heritage," Harper replied simply. "My issues with you didn't change that fact." Landon studied her face, the woman he had once loved so completely, now a stranger who had built an extraordinary life without him. "And what happens now?" he asked. "Beyond the merger, beyond the legal proceedings against Caleb and Vanessa, now?" "Now, you get to know your children," Harper answered slowly, "on their terms, and mine. You've missed 6 years, Landon. That can't be recovered overnight." "And us?" he asked quietly. Hesitantly, "Is there any possibility that—" "No," Harper interrupted firmly. "That part of our story ended the night you chose to believe Caleb over me. I've built a life I'm proud of, Landon. The twins and I are happy." Her voice didn't shake, not even a little. She had rehearsed this moment in her head 1,000 times, And now that it was real, she felt only clarity. Landon nodded, accepting her answer with a resigned dignity that would have been impossible for the younger man who had cast her out so rashly. I understand. I need you to know how deeply I regret what happened. If I could go back. We can't go back, Harper said more gently. We can only go forward. For the twins' sake, I hope we can build a civil relationship. But romantic reconciliation isn't possible. Too much has changed. She let the silence settle like dust, soft but undeniable. The room had once held their future. Now it held only reality. As Landon absorbed this definitive statement, a soft knock came at the study door. Dr. Rivera entered with a tablet in hand. Sorry to interrupt, but you should see this. The news about Caleb and Vanessa's arrest has broken. Cruz Technologies' board is calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Landon grimaced. I should go. I need to prepare for the fallout. The merger proposal could stabilize things if presented promptly, Harper suggested. Your parents have copies. Perhaps they could attend with you while I handle the twins' morning routine. The phrase lingered between them. 6 years of solo routine encapsulated in one quiet reminder. No anger, just the weight of all he had missed. Thank you, he said finally. For the proposal, for dinner, for everything. He hesitated. Would it be appropriate to say goodnight to the twins? Harper nodded. They're probably still awake. Luna rarely falls asleep before extracting at least 3 bedtime stories. A ghost of a smile crossed Landon's face. She's persistent, like her mother. Yes, Harper agreed, leading him toward the children's room. Though her negotiation tactics come entirely from your side of the family. The conference room at Cruz Technologies hummed with tension as board members assembled for the emergency meeting. News of Caleb and Vanessa's arrests had spread rapidly through financial circles, and the company's stock had been suspended from trading pending investigation. Landon sat at the head of the table, his father beside him, both men looking exhausted but resolute. The board members, many longtime family friends, appeared shell-shocked by the revelations about Caleb's activities. The situation is grave, Landon began, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil, but not unsalvageable. With your permission, I'd like to present a proposed path forward. For the next hour, Landon outlined the merger proposal. Harper had prepared. The board listened with increasing interest as Landon explained how combining Nova Therapeutics' innovative research with Cruz Technologies' established infrastructure could preserve jobs, maintain patient access to medications, and position the combined entity as an industry leader. This Harper win, one board member said skeptically. She's willing to merge her successful company with ours during a crisis of this magnitude? What's her motivation? Landon and his father exchanged glances. There's something else you should know, Landon admitted. Harper Wynn is Harper Cruz, my former wife. The shocked murmurs around the table reflected the bombshell nature of this revelation. The woman Caleb Blake claimed was unfaithful? An older board member clarified. The one who disappeared 6 years ago? Yes, Landon confirmed. Caleb fabricated evidence against her to conceal his own financial crimes. She was innocent of all accusations. And she's now our primary competitor? Another board member asked incredulously. She is, Landon acknowledged. She's also the mother of my 6-year-old twins, whom I met for the first time yesterday. The stunned silence that followed was finally broken by the company's longest-serving board member, Margaret Chen. That's not what I meant, she clarified gently. I meant, for you, personally, you were deceived by people you trusted implicitly. That isn't something one simply moves past. Landon considered her question seriously. I've started therapy, he admitted. Something I should have done years ago, after my brother's death. Caleb exploited my grief and insecurities masterfully. He met Harper's gaze. I'm not the same man who threw you out, Harper. I can't change what I did, but I can ensure I never make that kind of mistake again. Harper nodded, accepting his answer without comment. The merger announcement made headlines across business publications. Nova and Cruz Technologies announce historic merger. Harper Wynn, revealed as Landon Cruz's ex-wife, in stunning corporate and personal reconciliation. The personal aspect of the story. The wronged wife, returning triumphantly with hidden children and a superior company, captured the public imagination. Interview requests flooded in, all of which Harper politely but firmly declined. This isn't a tabloid drama, she told her PR team. It's a business merger, with personal elements that aren't for public consumption. As the weeks passed, Landon's relationship with the twins gradually deepened. Leo, especially, began to lower his guard, particularly after discovering his father's, the extensive library and shared interest in geology. Luna, matter-of-fact as ever, simply adopted Landon into her world as though he had always been there, effortlessly incorporating him into her expansive worldview. The twins' upcoming 7th birthday became a focal point. Landon, eager to make the occasion memorable, consulted repeatedly with Harper about appropriate gifts and arrangements. "Nothing extravagant," she cautioned. "They don't need to be showered with expensive presents to make up for lost time." "I know," Landon assured her, "but I'd like to contribute something meaningful to the space theme Luna requested." The day before the celebration, Landon appeared at Harper's penthouse with Dr. Rivera, who had become an unexpected ally in helping him navigate his new relationship with the children. "We have a proposal," Dr. Rivera announced for the birthday party. Harper raised an eyebrow. "I thought everything was arranged. Eleanor's making the cake, the decorations are ready, and the planetarium visit is booked for tomorrow morning." "This would be an addition," Landon explained. "With your approval, of course." He outlined the idea. A professional observatory had agreed to host a private evening viewing session following the planetarium visit. The twins and their friends would have access to high-powered telescopes during an unusually clear night, when several planets would be visible. "That's actually perfect," Harper acknowledged. "Luna will be ecstatic." "And for Leo," Landon continued, more hesitantly, "I've arranged for a geologist from the Natural History Museum to bring several rare specimens for him to examine, including," he added with a small smile, "a fragment of the meteorite that created the Barringer crater." Harper looked at him with new appreciation. "You've been paying attention to their interests." "Of course," Landon replied simply. "They're extraordinary children. Getting to know them has been the greatest privilege of my life." The birthday celebration unfolded perfectly. The twins, surrounded by friends from school and both sides of their unusual family, blossomed under the attention. Eleanor and Landon's mother had formed an unexpected alliance, coordinating decorations and food with military precision. Richard Cruz, initially awkward around children, had found his niche, helping Leo organize his growing rock collection at the observatory. That evening, after the other children had been collected by their parents, the core family group remained. Luna moved from telescope to telescope with boundless enthusiasm, while Leo carefully logged his observations in a notebook Landon had given him. As the children were occupied with Dr. Rivera and the elder Cruzes nearby, Landon found himself standing beside Harper at the observatory railing, looking out over the city lights. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for allowing me to be part of today." Harper nodded, her expression softening in the dim light. "You did well. The observatory was the perfect gift." "I meant what I said before," Landon continued carefully. "Getting to know them, even with all the years I've missed, is the greatest gift I could have received." Harper turned to study him. The man she had once loved completely, now a different person, shaped by loss and revelation. "You've changed," she observed. "I had to," Landon replied simply. "The man I was 6 years ago lost everything that mattered because he couldn't see what was right in front of him." "Not everything," Harper corrected, glancing toward the twins. "They're still yours, in the ways that matter most." "Because of you," Landon acknowledged. "Because despite everything, you made sure they knew who I was." A comfortable silence fell between them, not the intimacy of their former relationship, but something new. A shared appreciation for the extraordinary children they had created and the complex path that had led them to this moment. "Mom, Dad," Luna called excitedly, the parental designations now coming naturally to her. "They found Saturn's rings. Come see." As they moved to join their children, Landon paused. "Harper, I know we can never go back to what we were, and I've accepted that. But I want you to know that I'm grateful for this second chance to be in their lives, and even if it's only as a co-parent and business partner." Harper considered his words carefully. "Life rarely gives us what we expect, Landon. Sometimes it takes away what we thought we couldn't live without, only to replace it with something we never imagined possible." As the twins called for them again, she added gently, "Let's focus on giving them the stable, loving family they deserve, whatever form that takes." 1 year later, after the dramatic wedding interruption, the twins' 8th birthday arrived, with considerably less drama, but far more joy. Novacruz Pharmaceuticals had not only survived the merger, it had thrived. By combining Harper's innovative research approach with Cruz Technologies' established infrastructure, the company had become an industry leader in ethical practices, transparent testing, and affordable medication pricing. The birthday celebration was held at Landon's new home, a comfortable but not ostentatious house with a sprawling garden, perfect for the dinosaur-themed party Leo had requested. His interests had shifted from rocks to paleontology. In recent months, Harper arrived early to help with preparations, bringing Eleanor and Dr. Rivera, who had become beloved fixtures in the twins' ever-expanding family circle. Landon's parents were already there, Richard Cruz carefully assembling a realistic volcano that would erupt safely during the party, while his wife arranged prehistoric-looking plants around the garden. "Everything looks amazing," Harper commented, surveying the transformed backyard. "The children will love it." "I hope so," Landon replied, emerging from the house with trays of fossil-shaped cookies. Leo was very specific about scientific accuracy. "He gets that from both of us," Harper observed with a smile. Their relationship had evolved over the past year into a comfortable co-parenting arrangement. The initial tension had gradually given way to mutual respect as they navigated both their corporate merger and their shared responsibilities for the twins. The children had adapted to their new family structure with remarkable resilience. They now spent 3 nights a week at Landon's home, with the remaining time at Harper's penthouse. Far from being confused by the arrangement, Leo and Luna seemed to thrive, having both parents actively involved in their lives. As guests began to arrive, school friends, colleagues from both companies, and the unconventional extended family they had assembled, Harper found herself watching Landon interact with the children. His transformation over the past year had been nothing short of remarkable. The ambitious, sometimes arrogant pharmaceutical heir had been replaced by a thoughtful, patient father who prioritized his children above all else. "He's done well," Dr. Rivera observed, joining Harper at the edge of the garden. "Better than I expected, if I'm being honest." "Yes," Harper agreed. "The twins adore him." "And you?" Dr. Rivera asked carefully. "How are you feeling about everything? It can't be easy, watching him integrate so seamlessly into the life you built without him." Harper considered the question. "Actually, it's been easier than I anticipated. Landon isn't trying to take over or change what already works. He's simply adding himself to the equation in ways that benefit the children." "And in ways that benefit you," Dr. Rivera pressed gently. "Having a co-parent after 6 years of doing everything alone must be some relief." "It is," Harper acknowledged, "though I sometimes feel guilty about that. After everything that happened, should I be allowing him to make my life easier?" Dr. Rivera smiled knowingly. "Forgiveness isn't just about him, Harper. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of the past." Before Harper could respond, another guest arrived, David Rivera, Dr. Rivera's son, carrying an elaborately wrapped gift. Over the past year, David had become a frequent visitor at family gatherings. As a pediatric surgeon who had initially treated Leo for a minor sports injury, he had formed a natural bond with both children. "Sorry I'm late," he apologized, greeting Harper with a warm smile. "Emergency surgery ran long." "You're right on time," Harper assured him. "The volcano eruption isn't scheduled for another 30 minutes. As David moved to greet the twins, who received him with obvious affection, Dr. Rivera gave Harper a meaningful look. "He canceled a conference in Boston to be here today," she mentioned casually. "Said the twins' birthday was more important." Harper felt a quiet flush of warmth at this information. Her friendship with David had been developing gradually, but neither of them had taken steps to define it as anything more. "He's good with them," Harper observed neutrally, though her expression softened as she watched David help Leo adjust his paleontologist costume. The party proceeded perfectly, with the volcano eruption serving as the dramatic highlight. Leo and Luna, surrounded by friends and their beautifully blended extended family, beamed with happiness as they blew out the candles on their dinosaur cake. As the celebration began to wind down, Landon approached Harper with 2 glasses of champagne. "A toast?" he suggested. "To our extraordinary children," Harper replied, accepting the glass. "To Leo and Luna, may they always be this happy." They sipped in companionable silence, watching as the twins excitedly showed their friends the real fossil specimens Landon had obtained from the museum. "I've been meaning to tell you," Landon said after a moment. "The investigation into Caleb and Vanessa's activities is finally complete. Their sentencing is next month." Harper nodded. The legal proceedings had been extensive, uncovering even more widespread fraud than initially suspected. "Have they offered any explanation?" she asked. "Why they did it? Why they targeted me specifically?" "Caleb finally admitted that he recognized you were close to discovering irregularities in the research data," Landon explained. "He knew your scientific thoroughness would eventually expose the corners he was cutting. Removing you was self-preservation. And Vanessa?" Landon's expression hardened slightly. "Apparently," Landon said, "she always resented our relationship. She saw Caleb's scheme as an opportunity to get what she'd wanted since university, wealth and status as a cruise." Harper absorbed this information thoughtfully. "It's strange to think how differently everything might have unfolded if you had simply listened to me that night." "I know," Landon acknowledged, regret thick in his voice. His fingers curled slightly against his glass, knuckles white. "Not a day passes that I don't think about it. The way you looked at me when I threw you out. I see that look in my dreams. I wake up sick." He turned to her, raw and unfiltered. "If I could change any one moment in my life, it would be that one." "And yet," Harper mused, watching the joyful chaos of their children's birthday party, "would we want to change it? I mean, Nova wouldn't exist. Your parents wouldn't have Eleanor terrifying them with her brutally honest opinions." She smiled slightly. "Dr. Rivera and I wouldn't have revolutionized cancer treatment protocols." "A silver lining to my catastrophic mistake," Landon suggested with a self-deprecating smile. "Perhaps," Harper allowed, "though the cost was tremendous." For a moment, their eyes met, and in that silence was the full weight of what had been lost. Trust, time, years of bedtime stories, and scraped knees. Their conversation was interrupted by David, who approached with an apologetic expression. "Sorry to interrupt, but Leo is insisting that only a medical doctor can properly examine his new fossil collection for scientific accuracy. Apparently, my credentials as a surgeon qualify me for this honor." Landon laughed. "You'd better not keep him waiting. He takes his fossils very seriously." As David moved away, Landon glanced between him and Harper with knowing eyes. "He's a good man," he observed neutrally. "Yes," Harper agreed simply. "The twins are comfortable with him. They mentioned he takes them hiking on Saturdays." "Sometimes he does," Harper confirmed. "He's been a good friend." Landon studied her face. "Just a friend?" Harper met his gaze directly. "We're taking things very slowly. The children are my priority." "As they should be," Landon agreed. His voice was quiet, sincere. And then, after a breath, "But Harper, if he makes you happy, don't let the past, our past, stand in the way of that." There was no bitterness in his words, only the soft ache of a man who finally understood what he had lost and knew he had no right to ask for it back. The simple sincerity of his words touched Harper unexpectedly. It was another sign of just how much Landon had changed, the ability to genuinely wish her happiness, even with someone else. Later that evening, after the last guests had departed and the twins were asleep in their rooms at Landon's house, the adults gathered on the patio. Eleanor and the elder Cruz parents were engaged in a lively debate about educational approaches, while Dr. Rivera shared stories from her early research days. David sat beside Harper, their hands occasionally brushing, small, warm gestures that suggested a growing comfort between them. The quiet intimacies didn't go unnoticed by Landon, who smiled to himself before turning his attention back to the conversation. As midnight approached, Eleanor announced it was time for her to head home, prompting a general movement to wind down the evening. The twins would stay with Landon until morning, following their established routine. "I'll walk you out," David offered, as Harper gathered her things at the front door. Away from the others, he hesitated. "I've been meaning to ask you something." Harper looked at him expectantly. "There's a medical conference in Vienna next month," he explained. 3 days, I thought maybe you might consider joining me." He paused, then added, "We could extend it to a week. See the city." The invitation hung between them, not just a proposal for travel, but a step toward defining their relationship more clearly. "I'd need to check with Landon about the twins," Harper began cautiously. "Already did," David admitted with a sheepish smile. "He assured me he could adjust his schedule to have them that week. Dr. Rivera volunteered to help too." Harper raised an eyebrow. "You've been planning this?" "Hoping," David corrected gently. "I know how important the children are to you. I wouldn't suggest anything that complicated their lives." The care behind his words, not just for her, but for the entire complex family she had built, touched Harper deeply. "Vienna sounds wonderful," she said finally, allowing herself to accept the possibility of personal happiness, one that had nothing to do with revenge or redemption. The following morning, Landon prepared breakfast as the twins energetically recounted their favorite parts of the party. Harper arrived to collect them, accompanied by David, who had offered to drive them to their weekend science club. As the adults supervised breakfast cleanup, an unexpected moment of harmony settled over the kitchen. Landon and David discussing the twins' educational interests, Harper organizing the week's schedule, all operating with the comfortable rhythm of people who had found a way to put the children's needs above all else. When the twins ran off to collect their science projects, Landon took the opportunity to speak privately with Harper. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Harper asked, genuinely puzzled. "For allowing me to be part of their lives," Landon explained. "For not letting bitterness consume you when you had every right to." Harper considered his words carefully. "Do you know what the real secret was? The one that ultimately ruined you?" Landon waited, curious. "It wasn't the twins," she continued. "It wasn't Nova Therapeutics, and it wasn't exposing Caleb's schemes. It was showing you that redemption was possible," Harper said softly. "But forgiveness had to be earned. Every day. The man who threw me out that night would never have understood that. The man standing before me now does." Her words contained no malice, only a recognition of truth. Landon nodded slowly, accepting both the assessment and the implicit acknowledgement that he had indeed changed. "Mom, Dad, we're ready," Luna called from the hallway, where she and Leo waited with their backpacks and science projects. As they moved to join the children, Landon asked softly, "Are you happy, Harper? Truly?" She glanced toward David, who was helping Leo adjust his dinosaur diorama, then back to the twins, healthy, brilliant, and surrounded by people who loved them. Finally, she considered herself, the woman who had risen from homelessness to build a pharmaceutical empire, who had raised extraordinary children alone, and who had now found a peaceful resolution to what had once seemed an unforgivable betrayal. "Yes," she answered honestly. "Not in the way I once imagined, but perhaps in a better way than I could have planned." Outside, as they prepared to separate, the twins going with Harper and David to science club, Landon heading to a company meeting, Leo suddenly paused. "Wait," he said seriously. "We forgot something important." The adults exchanged concerned glances. "What is it, sweetheart?" Harper asked. "Our family photo," Leo explained, pointing to the camera still sitting on the entry table from yesterday's party. "We're supposed to take one after every birthday. It's our tradition." The simple request to document their unconventional family momentarily silenced the adults. It was Luna who solved the practical problem. "We need the timer," she declared, already setting up the camera. "Everyone by the garden wall. Hurry." They assembled as directed, Landon and Harper, with the twins between them, David and the others arranged around them. As the timer counted down, Leo and Luna beamed with the simple joy of children surrounded by adults who had found a way to put love above resentment, forgiveness above revenge. The camera flashed, capturing a moment that would have seemed deemed impossible just 2 years earlier. Not a perfect family by conventional standards, but one that had been forged through extraordinary circumstances into something resilient and real. Later that evening, as Harper reviewed work documents while the twins completed homework at the dining table, her phone chimed with a message from Landon. He had sent the family photo, accompanied by a simple text, "Not what either of us imagined, but perhaps better than what we planned. Thank you for showing me that the most powerful revenge wasn't destruction, but creation." Harper studied the image, her children's joyful faces surrounded by the unusual extended family they had assembled. Landon was right. The real revenge she had taken wasn't in destroying him or his company. It was in becoming something no one expected her to survive long enough to become. A builder, a mother, a storm, a legacy. It was in creating something so extraordinary from the ashes of betrayal that it transformed everyone it touched, including, most surprisingly, herself. What would you have done in Harper's position? Would you have chosen revenge, reconciliation, or something entirely different? The choices we make in our darkest moments often reveal our true character far more than the ones we make in moments of joy. If you enjoyed this story of resilience, redemption, and the complex nature of forgiveness, please consider subscribing to our channel. In the comments below, we'd love to hear what part of Harper's journey resonated most with you. Until next time, thank you for listening.